So you're planning a gaming retreat, or maybe you're going off to a cabin with just a few games and some friends. Either way, it's something we have been doing. I just did it.
Ryan's just doing it.
About to go do it. So we thought we'd put together 5 tips for your gaming retreat. And we're going to start with number 1. This is the one thing I think that's maybe one of the most important things. All 5 of these really are. But it is make sure someone brings that one game.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're not going to play it.
Yeah, or conversely, everyone brings that one game and no one brings that other game. So what we do for our cabin trip is actually we have a shared Google Doc where people can not only put the games that they're bringing, but also can put their requests. So if you're thinking about what games do I want to bring, because what always happens, people load up 50 games into their car, and even if you're going for a 4-day weekend, you're going to play 10 of them. And the other 30 are going to just sit there. So by doing this, we can look and see, okay, I'm debating between this game and that game. Oh, but I see 2 people have requested to play Sancore. I'll bring Sancore. That's a good example. Or you end up with like 7 copies of Wormspan and no copy of Dune Imperium.
Yeah,
right? That happens.
Something like that just happened. I just got back from last weekend at a trip, and I traveled quite a bit. In fact, I didn't travel as far as everyone, but I traveled further than most by car. And I went by car because I wanted to bring a lot of games.
Yeah.
We have a lot of new games here. Not everyone else does. So I put a lot, and every game that I brought that I saw another copy of, I was like, oh, like maybe I could have flown, or, so that was...
Right, did I need to bring 6 board game bags full of games?
But the worst case scenario is if no one brings the one thing. You're like, hey, you're bringing Dune Imperium, right? Because we're going to have that big game.
Yeah.
And then there's miscommunication. So long story short, communicate. Yeah, whether it's Google Docs or just talking to one another, make sure someone brings that one game.
Yeah.
And what do you need to play the games on?
Yeah,
Ryan?
the next thing we're going to talk about is tables. Lots of tables.
Tables.
I think this is something that's very easy to forget. When you're booking your venue, you're not necessarily thinking about play space. You're looking at how many people can sleep there. You're looking at the kitchen, whatever. Maybe it has a nice view. But if you're not planning, if nobody's driving and you don't have somebody bringing tables, you can get there, and I've actually had this happen.
Oh, for sure.
You get there and you're like, well, the table that's here is tiny and there's one of them.
Or it's big and there's one of them. Like, it depends on how many people. I just went to one where there was like 16 plus people. So there's really only one table in this cabin. And it was a cabin that housed up to 16, 20 people, but there was one big, long table that could do maybe at most 2 games at once. But with some of the bigger games, not so much. Other thing goes hand in hand with the tables, I just want to mention this before we move on to number 3, is lighting. Because some cabins don't have a lot of lighting. Parks are notorious for like, this is where you sleep, not where you do other things. So they don't put a lot of lighting in there, especially for board games. So we've actually brought like a couple garage type lights.
Yeah.
We had them strung up with like bungee cords and hanging around. We did every year we do that. So tables, lights, make sure you can play the games you're going to play.
Know the venue, I guess, is what sums that one up.
And while you're there, depending on how many days you're going to be there, you're going to have to figure out the food situation. We had a debate before we started recording this about how you handle that. Ryan's been to a few where he said, no, we just forget it. Every man for themselves.
Well, I think the key thing here too, because of differences like that, like we've tried in the past where we had scheduled meals where it's like, okay, lunch is at 11, but then someone, half the gaming group is in the middle of a game. They're not done till 1, the food's cold, then there's whatever. But I think the important thing is to communicate with your group and set the expectation. I know you handle things differently with your cabin trips.
Yeah, we do. I've never done the food part because usually, like I said, I'm traveling pretty far. But the people who do, there's a few people who sign up. They basically say, hey, we need someone to sign up for each meal. And the meals that get prepared are very flexible, right? So first of all, they're usually big pots of chili or large casseroles. They're not like complicated meals.
Right.
And they're the kind of things that can sit on a stove for a while and stay a little bit warm so that if you are finishing up a game, you can do that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I think it just matters to know, because you don't want to get there and find out it's one way or the other. Like, you don't want to get there and realize nobody brought food, or people just brought food just for themselves and you don't have anything to eat because people didn't bring stuff to share. I mean, that kind of ties into all of these ideas of communication.
Yes.
But But you might not think about like, okay, well, we don't want to live just on snack food, you know.
Well, but you often.
But you might. End
I
up
can't
doing
tell
that.
you how many granola bars I had last weekend in a pinch for sure.
You might do that. We actually have a set of people that are planning out. They just go buy a ton of food, and then we split up the cost amongst everybody, and then you just eat when you want what you want. That's how we do it.
Yeah, we generally had a lunch organized, and that was literally oftentimes just like we brought a bunch of lunch meats. So you just made a sandwich whenever you were ready. Yeah. And then dinner was a couple, and this is like 3 or 4 nights. We just had a planned dinner each night. And we even had a couple vegetarians or vegans, so we managed the menu for everybody, so it worked out.
You got to.
What we didn't have is breakfast. And one of the reasons is we didn't want to plan 3 meals, but the other reason is people are waking up at different times. And one of the big reasons that is you might not be getting a lot of sleep for a variety of reasons. And I wanted to say, earplugs might be a good idea.
I think that's a great idea for two reasons. Yes, when you're sleeping, it's loud. If you're especially somebody that lives alone. If there's a snorer. Well, not even if there's a snore. If you live alone.
Well, that's true.
You're not, I mean, you kind of misjudge. Like you sleep in a cabin with 16 people.
Well, there may even be people playing loud games still when you're going to bed.
But not just having earplugs for sleeping, but also if you've ever been to a convention or you've ever been in a room where there are 16 people playing games at the same time, that decibel level just stacks on top of each other, and that echo can kill you. So it's not a bad idea if you have sensitive hearing, especially, to think about that. It's going to be a lot louder than your just normal game night.
So I need to understand, are you endorsing earplugs while playing board games?
I'm saying, yeah. I mean, as long as you can hear your table. Like, I've just definitely been to events where it's like, man, I wish I had earplugs because it's so oppressively loud that it just gives you a headache.
Yeah, and if not for that reason, our cabin retreat has had a couple people who snored, and when I say snore, this is like of all time the world's champion snorers, and it keeps me up. So I'm a light sleeper, so earplugs might be a good idea.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to talk about, this is easy. It's kind of our motto here: have fun. And by saying that, I mean, you're going to be staying in a cabin, maybe for 3, maybe for 4 nights. Yeah. You're going to be living with people that you don't live with for a lot of time. Yeah. You're basically, for lack of a better way of putting it, trapped in a small space with a bunch of people. People might get on each other's nerves. It happens. Give each other space. Make sure everyone has fun. If you're getting uptight, if the people you're playing with are like annoying you, just get up for a moment, take a deep breath, come back, finish that game, and quietly maybe never play games with them.
Yeah, well, I think giving space is important, but also taking space is important. Make sure that you take the time. Like, if you just go game to game to game to game to game, by that 4th day, your brain is dead, you're irritable, you don't want to go for a walk, space it out, take some time for yourself, bring a book, do some alone time. Like, 4 days constantly surrounded by people. Now, maybe some of you out there are just like, yeah, I love it. I love that tension. I'm like,
you're not invited to my cabin retreat.
I need some space. I have some books I'm bringing to go find a little quiet place to read for an hour in between games.
I'm gonna check in with you to see how much progress you made on your books.
I'll probably finish the book I'm going to bring. So
yeah, make some space for yourself. We actually went disc golfing one day.
Yeah.
We went walking several days because it was a nice state park. So do that. I know a lot of people when they go on these trips think, oh, I got to get as many games in as I possibly can. Here's my plan of attack. Like I said, take a deep breath. Don't take it so seriously. Get a lot of games in, but just have fun doing it. So anyway, those are 5. I'm sure there are a lot more tips when you go on a retreat or do anything with a lot of people playing games. So if you have any that we didn't list here, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and talk with you and, have fun at your cabin retreat.
Absolutely.
He's about to leave, so we need to stop recording this.
Hopefully I'll have some fun.
Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.